So welcome Kirsty Goodall.
Thank you.
From Atkinson Crehan Law, our guest today on the pod. Let's start off with a really open-ended question for you. In a nutshell, tell us what a conveyancing solicitor does. What do you do?
So basically we look after anything that is land related. So we'll deal with your sales, purchases, refinances, subdivisions, anything you want to do with regards to maybe registering easements, caveats on properties, transfer property between different entities if you have a company, etc.
Yeah.
So yeah, we kind of just deal with land and anything associated to it. Yeah.
So when someone's buying a house, all right, which is what we do, we sell them a house, they need someone like you to make sure they check the title and the form and everything else about the property.
Yeah.
So when you're checking the title of the property, what do you go through? Because obviously some titles are very complex and then others are very straightforward.
Yep.
All right, so what generally are checked? What's checked in the title?
Everything. To keep it simple, everything. So we'll look at obviously all the land covenants on there.
Yeah.
So for those who don't know, a land covenant is essentially a rule or a set of rules that are attached to a property.
Yeah.
So in the newer subdivisions, it can be things like design control,
Yes.
don't paint your house bright pink,
Yeah.
Yep.
don't use secondhand materials, things like that. They dictate a lot and they are binding.
I was going to say, and what we're finding often now with these new builds and these new subdivisions is that one of the covenants is that the design of the house must be signed off by the developer
Yes.
before it's built.
Yes.
And people like yourself always come back and ask, can we please have evidence of that sign off? Where a lot of people out there watching and listening won't know that the house can't be built in a new subdivision until it's got approval from the developer. And
Yes.
it has to be officially signed off.
Yes.
And you're the lovely people that contact us and say, can you give us evidence of this, please, Glenn?
Yes, and
Right.
yes, and sometimes we get it, sometimes we don't. What we have noticed again is with the newer subdivisions, the builders are actually getting used to being asked that now,
Yeah.
and so they've got it, they've saved it on their system, and it's so much easier to get. The harder ones are the properties that were built 5, 10, 15 years ago. I even had
Yeah.
one last year that was about 22 years ago.
Oh, well, and the covenants are still
We couldn't
standing?
find it.
Yeah.
But it was a bit of an unrealistic ask. But so no, that's something that's on the title, and we'll also check for like easements, the consent notices. So again, those who are listening and don't know, an easement is just basically something that's on the title, granting someone the right to do something on your land. So. It could be a right to the council to access the property and drain sewage or whatever. It'll show you the area, etc. And we just want to check that you're basically happy with what's on there, that there's nothing on there that's like, well, that's just not going to work for us.
Yeah.
And consent notices, which is something that's issued by the council, and that allows the subdivision to usually go through based on some rules being complied with or some conditions being complied with. So again, just checking that you as the buyer are okay with that, basically.
Yep. And first home buyers who we're talking to a bit here, quite often looking at homes that are cross lease properties,
Yep.
and quite often get some nervousness around that. What's the main differences between freehold and a cross lease, and what do you need to be looking out for if you're purchasing?
Yep. So the difference between a freehold property is obviously you own all of the land and the house, so anything that's on that land. A cross-lease property, let's just say these two houses, so two flats. So you own a half share, which is an undivided half share. So there's no actual line drawn to say that's yours and that's mine. So you own an undivided half share in that land, and you own your specific house, and sometimes specific garages associated. So that's the difference. On your title, you will have a lease. So each party or each owner will have a lease.
Off each other.
Yep. And it'll have various things in there. A little bit like the covenants in a way.
Yeah, rules.
So be respectful to one another. Don't make structural adjustments without the permission of the other. Usually that's more in relation to like load-bearing walls, something that's actually going to affect the other party.
Or extending the footprint.
Yes. Yes, because that's...
Yes.
So...
extending the footprint on the cross-lease title.
Yes, we come across those a lot too. So we need to check basically that the flat's plan, which is part of the title, matches what's actually on the property.
What's actually there.
If it's not, it's deemed as an incorrect flats plan.
Can you get that fixed?
We can.
What
It's
is
expensive.
I was going to say.
That's the
It's
problem, isn't
expensive,
it?
We sell a few houses and we sell obviously a few cross-lease properties. And I'd say I can't remember the last cross-lease property that we've sold that doesn't have what we would do, term, and I guess we term the same, that it's got a defective title, solely for the reason that the flats plan doesn't reflect what's at the property. And it's generally a conservatory or a garage. So in that circumstance there, what would your advice be to a first home buyer or a client, any client?
So pretty much always the same thing. We tell them, look, this is incorrect. If you don't think it's an issue, fantastic. You can buy the house if that's what you want. But if the person who's the other flat decides it's an issue or sells the property and the buyer won't go through with it because the flats plan's incorrect and it's actually your fault, you'll be up for those costs. So there's a surveyor because they have to come in and redo the plan. And then you've obviously got lawyers' fees because effectively we have to change everything on the title.
Interesting.
Yes.
And would you say, in your experience, through that cross-lease / flats plan issue, how many people would walk away from a deal because of that, and how many people would just go, carry on?
Very slim, like
that's what
next
we
to
find.
none.
We find the same thing.
I think it's the main thing about them understanding a cross lease is the main thing, and then them not being too scared of it. I own a cross lease, never had an issue at all with the neighbours. We've been able to do what we've been wanting to do with the property in terms of renovations. Obviously nothing structural, but we've found it to be just fine as a form of ownership.
And it absolutely is. It absolutely is. And if your flats plan is correct, I don't see any reason that you would ever run into an issue. It's only if it's incorrect and, again, if somebody else decided it was a problem.
What is the approximate cost to fix a flats plan?
I think
Give us a round number.
I think we've sat down and one of my colleagues have done the figures once, and we're looking around the 22 to 25,000.
Oh, so that much is it?
So
it's a good number.
It can be less, it can be more, but it's just when you have, surveyors, lawyers, and anything else, and you're also up for the lawyers' fees for the other person, so the other owners, because they obviously have to sign off on everything.
And it goes back through Lynn's, does it?
Yes. Yeah.
And you can turn a cross lease into a freehold now?
I believe so. Yes, I don't personally do subdivisions myself, but yes, I think you can make the application to do it, and
that's cool.
Tick a few boxes. I don't see why you couldn't.
So, talking more first home buyers while we're on that, they need a solicitor, okay, and they've been given some recommendations, etc. And someone comes to you and they're keen to engage you. What's the process?
Yep. So first home buyers are very special. They require a little bit more care. So what we suggest they do at the very start of the process is please get a finance pre-approval first.
We said that earlier.
So people that are listening now who also listen to our other pods, we were right.
Yes,
the first thing to do is to get your finance sorted out.
Get your finance sorted. Then give us a call. Let us know basically your details so we can get a file opened up for you. And what we need to know is who are your KiwiSaver providers so that we can get those applications ready. And are you getting the Home Start grant? And just ask them to send us anything that they already have so that we're ready to go. And the reason that we have to be so prepared with first home buyers is because as soon as we get a contract in, we need to be doing that KiwiSaver application like the next day. Because if you have a 10-day finance clause, then you're going to need the full 10 days
Yes.
to, have
Get
your
the approvals.
application, exactly, to have the approval done. And, 15 working days is best, because then if you can't get to me the next day, then the day after that's fine, but let's not push it any further.
Yeah.
So that's the start of the process.
Yeah.
That's good. And what we were talking about earlier in another pod was, buyers can often miss out because maybe they're not as organised, etc. And we're sort of encouraging them to get their ducks in a row, and that includes engaging a solicitor and getting some advice, but not necessarily maybe getting you racking up the bill straight away, but it's getting that process started, and that they can actually get things checked prior to putting an offer in, and that's going to make their offer a lot more attractive, isn't it?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
we're sort of encouraging people to actually work with the professionals. I know that, it can be scary, especially for first-time buyers, talking to a solicitor, talking to an agent. Maybe they've had a bad experience before. But if you can find someone you can trust, like yourself, ourselves, or all other people, that we're actually there to help, and that we can actually get them in a better position than maybe another buyer to secure a property. Yeah.
No, we definitely would prefer to be reached out to early on in the process, and ask us, hey, this is my situation, this is the property, I'll flick you through what I've got, and then look, even if we don't have time to check the title, we can say, looking at this property, the area that it's in, what you've given me so far, just make sure you have this, this and this. Solicitor's approval clause, please. And we're not necessarily going to charge them for that. Every firm has.
That's what I think people don't realise.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. It was one thing that we talked about earlier. It was some companies offer basically a rate, and that's what it's going to cost you until you buy a house. And you might do 7 offers.
Yeah.
And this is what it's going to cost you. Others do it hourly, which that racks up pretty quick.
Yep.
And then others will do it per transaction, if you want. From your point of view, what does Atkinson Crehan offer a first home buyer? Do you offer per transaction, or you have a set fee, or how do you structure your billing?
So we sort of we have a bit of a base. I won't call it a fixed fee, but we have a real general base that we would charge, and that's for a first home buyer or anyone. And then a first home buyer, it does cost a little bit more, but in our defence, it is a lot more work. Hours more work.
To be fair, it's more work for us as well. Is it?
Yeah,
But that's okay.
so we will always give them a figure up front though, and say, hey, look, based on again what you've provided to me, and the fact that you have 2 KiwiSaver applications, a mortgage, 2 Homestart grant applications, this is about what it's going to be. It will almost definitely be that, and the only time that it wouldn't be is if something massive happened and it just blew out, and we were doing an extra 8 hours of work or something.
Exactly. You get a pear-shaped situation where you've got to do some negotiation and go through a builder's report situation or something like that. All the extra work.
Yeah, I mean, we're happy to all standard negotiation and stuff. Happy to, that's all kind of included. But if, if it came to settlement day and someone wasn't going to settle and we were there till 9 o'clock at night trying to sort it out, that's where we'd have to be okay, we're going to have to charge you something for this. So we will always try and give them a really good estimate.
And so, what do you think is the difference between, say, a good conveyancer when working with a client and maybe someone that's not so sharp? What are the differences?
Communication, massive.
Oh, definitely.
Massive. I think that everything can stem back to that, to be honest. If you, when people call their solicitor with something urgent, or email their solicitor, with something urgent, and it's, say, 10 o'clock in the morning, you should hear back from them within a couple of hours. But some people's practices is more I'll get back to you within a day or 2. That doesn't work with conveyancing.
No,
that's not how it works.
It's a fast-paced game.
It is. It is. So I think communication's the best, most important part.
What I've found and we've found is that, especially working with you, is that you do communicate quickly with us as well, and you actually want to work with us. Sometimes it's hard. There's a discourse there, and we're all trying to work towards the same goal, getting this deal together. So that communication is really key. So we've found that really great with you, and also that you're willing to, go out of maybe the realms of necessarily what you do. To make the deal work. We know there's one recently where you're working hard to make it work for your client, we certainly appreciate that as agents. So I think you're right. It's the communication that's key, and actually when it boils down to it, it's the same for agents. We're actually just professional communicators, and if we can't get that right, what are you paying us for? Yeah.
I think it's quite refreshing to have a solicitor / a legal exec who's quite comfortable and happy to work with agents as well. There's a lot of people around, not just in our town but out of town as well, that see agents as the enemy, and they want to do everything they possibly can to make things difficult. Where, at the end of the day, we're all working for the same people, whether that's the vendor or the purchaser, to try and make both parties happy. So it's really refreshing to know that yourself and your team, Atkinson Crehan, have been very willing to work with not only us, but all of the team at Summit, to get deals done and for people to get successful results both in selling and purchasing. So that's nice that we have that local support. It's really good. I guess one of the things that we always like to ask people was, especially from your side of things, can you recollect what has been the most challenging transaction you've done in, say, the last couple of months?
Yes, so I can't.
It's always nice to share a story.
Down to one transaction.
No, you're right.
Just for privacy reasons, etc. But what I will say is one of the most challenging things I have ever faced in my job was when COVID hit. Right. And it hit quick. We all got notice, as of this time, you got to be at home and that's it, not allowed to leave. It was the most challenging, I would say, because all of a sudden all of us, you guys as well, and our clients were all thrown into this situation, and we didn't have the right laws in place to guide us.
And to do the right stuff, right?
Yeah. So, usually we would be like, okay, we face this situation. You go back to your contract and you'd be like, okay, well, we'll just work through it. And, the contracts weren't fit for a pandemic.
No.
So it was very much a situation where people actually had to be kind to one another. And that in my job, that's like, well, doesn't matter if you're nice or not. We don't. This is the law and this is how it works. And so it was hard because we had people who, say they had an empty house that they were selling, and then these other people over here, they had to actually sell their house to,
move.
But it was illegal to move.
Yeah.
It was literally against the law to move.
You couldn't move, eh?
Yeah.
No, you weren't
exactly.
allowed to do it.
You weren't allowed to do it. There was not, you were not allowed to do it. And so it was hard because you think, well, these people aren't in breach, right? Because they're ready, willing, able, and they can provide vacant possession, but these people can't because they cannot leave their house. So they cannot sell their house and get the money to pay for it. And it was so challenging because, even the Law Society, they were like,
wash your hands
we
of it.
have to figure something out because this isn't. And so we were just sitting there like, and just trying so hard to get people to agree. But people are stubborn.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I can imagine that you guys copped it just as bad.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was an exciting time.
Challenging doing viewings where you can't take people through the home, you can't touch anything, spray your hands. Like, just thinking back on it, it was crazy times. Yeah. But a lot of property got sold in that time. That is when the market just went boom after that. Another sort of interesting thought I had was, obviously, you could be working for a client, whether it's a vendor or a purchaser within your firm, and then another one of your colleagues is working for the other party. That must be an interesting dynamic. And how do you work through that in terms of trying to separate business from obviously a relationship with your colleague?
Oh, you mean are you meaning if it's one of my colleagues who are actually in the transaction we're both acting for
both
acting?
Say for example, you're acting for the purchaser and Jacinta is acting for the vendor.
Yep.
So how does that work? Are you allowed to do that or are you not allowed to do that?
So we're allowed to do it.
Yep.
carefully.
Yes.
Yeah. So what we do is when we get in a contract, we're on both sides. We do a conflict of risk assessment.
Okay.
And it's kind of done on a little bit of a points basis. So how many conditions are there? Like, is it heavily conditional?
Yeah, right.
Or is it light? We'll look at the title and think, well, there's not really any risk
Any dodgy
involved.
ones
There's
in there?
nothing
Yeah.
there.
Okay.
We'll look at if we've acted for them before. So if they're a first-time buyer, then they're obviously inexperienced. But if they've done it 10 times, so we'll take all those things into
The risk, yeah.
consideration.
Make sure it's fair.
Yeah, and just make sure there's nothing that from the outset looks like it's going to be tricky. And then if it gets to the point where it gets tricky anyway, then one of them has to actually go to a different firm and they have to be acted for over there. And we tell them up front when they get their letter of engagement, they get a sheet as well, which is a conflict of interest, and they have to sign it to say they acknowledge that we're acting on both sides, and they acknowledge that if it goes pear-shaped, someone has to go elsewhere.
That's
So
okay.
that's
I mean, it's
how we
all
do it.
covered. Yeah, which
Yeah.
all makes sense, isn't
Yeah.
it? Common sense at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah.
What do you want to ask now, Callum?
I'm thinking, just trying in a nutshell here. Walk us through the process from start to finish if you're working with the purchaser.
Okay.
Yep.
So again, it's different if you're a first home buyer as opposed to experienced.
Say a stand. We won't-
Standard, not first home buyer
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Okay, so it's quite long-winded. I'll try not make it
Yep.
long-winded for you. So again, hopefully, if you're purchasing, you have a pre-approval. You can give us a call. Say we found this property that we like. Do you have time to look at it? Maybe I will, let's hope. I'll open a file for them, look at what I've been provided, tell them what I want in the contract. Then they can go to you guys and say, this is our offer, can you draw it up? You get it drawn up, they'll obviously sign it, give it back to you, you'll present it to the vendor. Hopefully the vendor accepts. Maybe there'll be a bit of toing and froing.
Yep.
Once everyone's happy, sends it to me. I will then contact the purchaser, send them letter of engagement, get a copy of the title, etc. Run through what conditions they have. So that's the point where they'll obviously instruct their builder if they're getting builder's report. If they want a limb report, that's the point where they'll order their limb report.
Yes.
So basically, they just start satisfying their conditions. At my end, that's where I start obviously checking the title, checking the contract, making sure that it's all okay, that the wording's okay. If they're happy with everything, great. We can go ahead and confirm all of their conditions. It might be that, say, the builder's report brought up a few issues. If that's the case, that's where they kind of tell me about it. And we go to the vendor with a proposal,
Yes.
we'll confirm if you rectify this, this and this, or a price reduction or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So let's just say everything's good and we're happy.
Yep.
Confirm it, pay the deposit, and then if you're getting a mortgage, let your bank know. They'll send me the loan documents.
Okay.
Yep.
And once I've got those, I can prepare all of the land transfer side of it. And you'll come in and meet with me, sign it all, send everything away. We'll have a big chat there as well about how they want to own the property. If they need wills to, because depending on how they own it, they might need supporting documents. And then we kind of just tick away waiting for settlement day. And you'll obviously have a pre-settlement inspection before that. Pick up anything that might not be fantastic about the property since you last viewed it, something that might have changed.
So a bedroom missing or...
Yeah, that would be an issue.
It could have happened before. I'm sure of it.
And then, let's just say it does go well. Then obviously they let me know. And then settlement day, I'll just wait for the money to come in, wait for the undertakings from the vendor's lawyer to say that they're ready to go. Pay the money, they can pick up their keys.
Done.
Yes.
Pop the champagne.
If
So
we
it's a
go-
long story, but that's how it works.
If we go back a couple of steps from popping the champagne.
Absolutely.
Right. Limb reports.
Yes.
Right. What, as a conveyancer, what are you looking for in a limb report? Because a lot of the people, watching, listening to this, it's a thing that they get advised to get a limb report.
As opposed to just the council files.
So they get the limb report, they're looking at it going, so what are you looking for in a limb report?
Okay, so depending on what kind of property it is and when it's built or whatever, we want to check that it has any relevant consents or codes, compliance, whatever. A little bit of a red flag for us is sometimes when you see that there's been an application for something, but then there's been no code of compliance. And that's when I'll say to my client, hey, I can see that there was, they asked to have this done. It was actually granted. Did they do it?
Hopefully we've picked that up before it gets there.
Yeah, hopefully. But sometimes it actually is that it was checked and the council just didn't add it into the limb, or it was never physically signed off, but the inspection was good.
Yeah, we've had all that.
All the fun stuff.
So that's the kind of stuff, or that's one thing we're looking for. Just anything like if it's by the sea, we'll just let them know, hey, look, it might be prone to getting like sea salt spray and stuff, which is, it's nothing really, but it's just, it can affect wear and tear on the property. Checking things, this is probably the most important one, is when they're in a not so densely put this so not as a new subdivision, right? Because people are right next to you, there's no room to move. If they're in an area where there's like a great big paddock behind them, and it might be an amazing spot for a shopping mall, we can see if there's if someone's put in an application or for a consent to like build something next door. So that's something we're looking for. So they're not so urgent and so required for the newer properties. It's more the older ones, or the ones that are in strange areas. Because I know rural properties, it's good to get them.
I know, since August 2022 when we had our big weather event here in Nelson, that the council, both TDC and Nelson City Council, have remapped a lot of the areas with flood models, risk, slope risk, fault hazard overlays. I mean, just about every property.
It's hard to find one without now.
Is in something. Do you take special care of looking at those maps?
We do always look. The good thing is with the limb reports is that they very clear as day say, this is in this area. And we'll sort of say to them, look, at the end of the day, it's actually your judgment call. We have never been to the property you have. If it's if it's actually miles away from the beach, we don't get too worried about it. We say this is your call, but what we do advise them to do is call an insurer and make sure that it's not going to be an issue to get insurance.
Cool. And that would be the same with fault hazard overlay and all those sort of things at the hillside. Cool.
And I guess at the end of the day, like, we have to protect ourselves too. So we do have to say, like, look, we have to always bring it to their attention.
Correct.
Tell them to go to their insurer and say, look, we can't provide too much opinion-based stuff. We can give you facts, and then it's up to you to make your judgment call, because we're not professional,
mappers,
engineers and geotechs and stuff. So
it's refreshing to hear that. Because we have to disclose stuff legally. Obviously we do, and we ask them to seek your advice, and then you go, well, at the end of the day, we're not that professional. If you wanted that, you then tell them to go to the next professional. So we probably bring the majority of stuff to their attention on day one. And then they can go to you for day 2 or 3 if they're interested. And then it's up to them whether they take it further or not. I think the majority of stuff is pretty clear anyway. Once you bring it to their attention, how serious that risk is or not. I mean, flood models are a great thing, aren't they? You've got 2030 flood models, and then you've got 2100 flood models, and they're,
think, how long are you going to own this property?
How long are you going to be kicking around for? You know what I mean? So it's just one of those things, you got to take it in perspective. But hey, look, Kirsty, it's been absolutely fabulous having you on board our pod today. So we thank you very much for coming along. All we would like to say to our people that are listening and watching is that if they need some legal advice, or they're looking for a local conveyancer, is to give the team at Atkinson Crehan a call. Ask for Kirsty, she'll look after you. So look, thanks very much again for coming along.
That's right, thank you so much for having me. It's been fun and not as scary as I thought.
Thank you.